Well, we're back with George Benson, and we're talking about the early days. So we left off talking about your ukulele career. That started playing recorders. And how long was it before you moved on to guitar?
Well, I played uke from about 7 to 9 when I picked up the guitar.
Okay.
And I never went back to it. But it was fun, playing. I found a recording the other day of myself singing Nat Cole songs with the ukulele as my background instrument, and it was really weird. But 9 years old was the time I switched to guitar. I never went back.
Now, did you tune the uke different than the guitar? I mean, did you make the transition easily? Or?
The transition was easy because of those first 4 strings, from the high string, the high E up. By them being primarily the same, it made it easy. All I had to do was think about now I had the bass line. I could play the bass notes with it. I said, oh, this is really nice. This is something good. I always had good ears,
Sure.
I never relied on technical things because I didn't know very much about what guys were doing. And there were so few guitar players in my hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had nobody besides my father to relate to. And he was wrapped up in Charlie Christian. If you didn't play like Charlie Christian, forget it. He didn't want to know your name.
Well, actually, he's got a good point there, too.
It was a great point.
Now, did you start with lessons, or did you study with anybody growing up?
No, only my stepfather. But I'll tell you the good thing that did happen. After he whetted my chops for the guitar, I started looking for people who came through my hometown who were playing at clubs.
Sure.
And I hunted them down like a mad dog. They would. One day, a guy made a mistake and told me where he was staying, what hotel he was in. And he told me, yeah, come see me tomorrow. I'll show you some things. And that next morning, at 9 o'clock, and I'm supposed to be in school.
Sure.
But I had to go. I went and knocked on his door. He said, who in the devil is that? I said, it's little Georgie Benson. He said, who the heck is little Georgie Benson hollering through the door? And I said, you told me you would show me something if I came by you. So he opened up the door. He said, well, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, yeah. Not realizing they didn't get in until 5.
Sure.
And he let me in, and it was a guitar player extraordinary. His name was Thornell Schwartz. And he was a rhythm master more than anything. He was playing with Jimmy Smith at the time, the great organist. And he was one of the first guitar players to play with Jimmy Smith.
Oh, okay.
So he taught me some wonderful chords. But what he did was point out my good attributes. He kept saying, man, you know something? You're going to be a guitar player one day. And I hung on to those things because it's inspiring,
Sure. Now, was there anybody else that came through town that we might have heard of?
Everybody. Well, they started, there was a man named Eddie McFadden, who was a great guitar player. And in our hometown, we had a great guitar player, but you could only see him on television. He was playing with Mr. Rogers, and it was Joe DiOrio was his name.
Joe is a good friend of mine.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, Joe DiOrio's from Chicago, isn't he?
Well, originally I think he was from Connecticut, and then he spent a lot of time in Florida.
After Chicago, because I met him in Chicago.
Okay.
And then you're right, he went down to Florida to play with Ira Sullivan.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes, sure.
I sat in with him too. No, it was another Joe, whose name I can't remember right now. But everybody that came through town, I hunted them down, especially if they had a big name. I really wanted to know. And I remember Montgomery. I remember hearing the name Wes. And I always thought he was Caucasian because they said he played with his fingers, or his thumb, which I translated to fingers. In my mind, I said, oh, wait a minute, it can't be him because the Wes I heard about is a Caucasian, and he plays, this style here. So I said, I got to go see this guy tonight. And he was playing right across the street from where I was playing. I was playing R&B house, singing mostly, but tearing up a few guitar solos, R&B. And when I walked in that door, I didn't hear anything I could recognize. Everything was so open and beautifully placed, and the tone was better than I had ever heard it before. And I had to meet him. And when he came off, I begged him, Mr. Montgomery, could you show me something? He was the first guy that said, no.
Is that right?
And I said, why not? And he said, I'm too busy trying to learn to play myself. And I thought that was pretty strange at the time. But later I found out that he was right on the money. He told the truth. He was one of the few guys just told it like it was.
How old were you at that time?
I was 17.
17.
When I
So you
met
were
him.
playing out professionally at 17.
I was across the street playing at a place that served cheap drinks. See,
Yeah.
so the band who was working at this fabulous jazz club, Caddy Corner from our club, they used to come over during their breaks to get the cheap drinks at my club. And so Montgomery's brother walked in, Buddy, and he said, yeah, he heard me play and he was drinking, and when I came off, he said, hey, let me talk to you for a minute. And he said, I said, yeah, you're Wes Montgomery's brother. And he said, yeah, he was playing, Little Vibes at the time and some piano. And he said, anybody ever tell you, you could play jazz if you wanted to? He said, ever think about playing jazz? I said, no, that's a little too difficult, man, for me. I don't know if I could do that, I wish I could. And he said, you can, man. He said, you'd be good at it. A year later, I met him in San Francisco. I had been picked up by Jack McDuff, the Jack McDuff Quartet, or better known as Brother Jack McDuff.
Sure.
And it was quite a stunning event when he walked into the jazz workshop in San Francisco. He said, you're that kid from Pittsburgh. I said, yeah. He said, I told you could play jazz. I told you could play jazz.
And he remembered you. Yeah, man, was he right?
Well,
Well, that's fantastic. So you really learned on the gig, it sounds like. But,
I did. I had a very, very tough band leader, and to my good, because he stayed on me day and night, From the time I hit that bandstand, he was all over me about the chords I was using, the inversions. And he insisted that everything we play had blues in it. I said, why does everything have to have blues? He said, George, blues music is accepted all over the world. You could go to China and play blues, and they'll go, oh, yeah, blues. We like blues. And I said, I started listening to other players, like the great piano with Ella Fitzgerald, Oscar Peterson. And he's right. Everything he played had a bluesy touch. Somewhere during that solo, he would jump on the blues aspect, and it would actually lift the song.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
And relate very easily because the simplicity of it, and when you bend notes, people talk. They don't talk straight, digital. They bend notes. Yeah, baby,
Right.
I was walking down the street one day, and, I saw this gal, everything. So the blues allows you to do that, when you're talking. I bend notes, and I found out you can play that when you're playing a jazz thing.
Oh,
After I play that, playing.
that's where all the
That
heart
kind
comes
of
from.
thing,
Sure. Now, last time I checked, 17 was underage to be playing in bars. Do you have any interesting stories about that?
Oh, let me tell you, man. From the very beginning, I was playing in nightclubs. Remember I told you I was playing ukulele?
Yeah.
Well, I was doing it on street corners and making some pretty good money every night before my mother found out I was doing it. I was giving it away to my friends,
Sure.
On the way home, they would beg me, George, give me a quarter, give me 50 cents. Until one day, my mother woke me up for school and all this money spilled out from under my pillow. She said, where did you get all this money? And I told her. Well, one day while I was playing on the corner, a guy approached me. He said, where do you live? He said, I want you to introduce me to your mother and father. So I did. I took him home, to meet my mother and father, and he owned a nightclub. It was called Little Paris. And I mean, it was Little Paris. They had the can girls and everything, And so he convinced my mother that, she said, oh, no, he can't work a nightclub. He said, why not? He said, the money's good. She said, he's got to go to school. And he said, well, if he worked on Fridays and Saturdays, there's no school the next day. And he said, plus I'm going to give you $40 a night. $40 a night? That was like gobs more. It took her 2 weeks to make $35. She was working as a nurse's aide in the hospital. So that was the offer she couldn't refuse. And we worked there, having a ball. Every night I would dance, play the ukulele, and sing. And people would throw money on the bandstand, And then one night, the cops came in. And they came in like the Keystone Cops in Dick Tracy magazine. They had sledgehammers in their hand. They chopped that place to pieces.
You're kidding.
Oh,
Oh,
every
my gosh.
table, every drink. They chopped it all to pieces, and they put everybody in the wagon. And they took us to the police station.
Is that right?
And it was just too crazy, man. And they threatened to take me from my parents because they were really strict on those laws about kids in those days.
Sure.
So from that point on, I had to be very careful. My mother immediately worried about anything or any place that I ever played. And but the clubs were so used to seeing me. They knew me as little Georgie Benson
Sure,
walking up down the street. Because after I did the uke thing, I did it with the guitar.
Right,
So
right.
now I became the guitarist. And they called me for everything. Everything came up. They called
That's, you know, you can't write stuff this good. That's great. And we're going to be back with a lot more.